Continuing on with that Edulastic assignment, reviewing here. Looking at this question, we've done similar ones like this before with the economics unit, but the question says, based on the chart, which two countries might set up a trade with agricultural products and fuel and mining products? So when you get that, those are the key words you should be looking for here. And so we've got agricultural products there, agricultural products here and there. So if we're trying to set up a trade involving agricultural products, you can know that those are three that you're going to be focusing on, and you got to identify which of those two makes sense. Then we want to look up and see the other type of product, which would be fuel and mining. Well, only two of those countries that have agriculture have fuel and mining, and that would be the United States and Saudi Arabia. So as you can see with this one, they make perfect sense because we've got the United States specializes in agriculture, Saudi Arabia specializes in fuel, and then they both need to import the other thing. So what one country has, the other one needs, and so therefore United States, Saudi Arabia are the ideal trade partners here. All right, for this one, looking at India. Now the hardest part about this one is just being able to know what this word literacy is. And literacy means the ability to read and write. And so if you didn't know that, which probably a good number of people didn't know what that meant, that will make it difficult to answer this question. But now that you know the literacy rate means the ability to read and write, hopefully you should be able to answer this question a little easier. So as you go through this, it says select two statements that are true based on this information. So you look at the title, look at the column headings, and it tells you which kind of information it's giving you. We have two different years. We're looking at population, the percentage of those population that can read or write, and then birth rate, which is the amount of births that take place. And it tells you it's per 1,000 people. So go through these one by one to see if they can line up. It says for letter A, more people moved to India in 1991 than in 1951. Well, there's definitely a higher population than 1951, but we don't really know for sure that that means that they were moving there, but it's something to keep an eye on. Maybe that's right. Letter B, the birth rate increased from 1951 to 1991. That one, pretty straightforward. Look at it. Did it increase? No, it went from 40 to 30. C, India's total population grew between 1951 and 1991. That one is definitely very clear. Letter D, more people in India were able to read in 91 than 51. Well, that goes back to knowing what literacy means. And so if that's percentage of reading, then it did go up from 1951 to 1991. Then letter E, Indian schools received more government funding in 1991 than 1951. It may have, but does this chart really tell us that anything about government funding? So based on that, you should be able to know which two statements are the ones that we can identify with this information here. All right, so here's one showing population data. That's the title. Then we've got 4 different countries that are listed with some information. Population, the growth rate of population. When it says median age, you should know from math, maybe in your lifetime of knowing that median is another way of saying average. And then we've got life expectancy. In other words, how long do they expect to live on average? And so we use this information to go through and see which of these statements below can be backed up. So you look at these statements one at a time, and we'll see if they can be proven true based just on this table of information. The countries with the largest populations have the longest life expectancies. So we look at the countries with the largest populations, that would be right here, China and India. Do they have the longest life expectancy? Well, you can look over there and compare. Letter B, the countries with the longest life expectancies have the highest median ages. So we go back, we look at the countries with the largest life expectancy, Australia, Japan. Do they have the highest median ages? Well, you look over here at Australia and Japan. Do they have the highest median age? The countries with the largest populations have the fastest population growth rates. But here's the largest populations, China and India. Do they have the highest growth rate? Well, 1.25 is high, but 0.44 is not one of the highest. So that wouldn't be right. And then D, the countries with the highest median ages have the fastest population growth rates. So similar thing. We look at the highest median ages, 38 and 46 for Australia and Japan. Do they have the highest growth rate? 1.09, negative 0.13. No, they don't. Here's a graph table that shows us literacy rate. We're going back to that reading ability, or the percentage of people in that country that can read. And then we also have birth rate. So here, what they're doing is they're comparing Middle Eastern countries with the percentage of the people that can read and the amount of births that take place. So we're trying to see is if there is any sort of relationship between how many people can read and how many babies are born. Does it matter? Does it make a difference? Well, here it says, what conclusions can be drawn about the relationship between these two? Select all that apply. This here says Afghanistan has the highest literacy rate and the highest birth rate. You look at Afghanistan, do they have the highest birth rate and highest literacy rate? No. Second one, the country with the highest literacy rate has the lowest birth rate. So we look at the country that has the highest literacy rate, which would be Qatar. It says they have the lowest birth rate, 11.5. Do they have the lowest birth rate? Yes. Letter C, the higher the literacy rate, the lower the birth rate. Well, if you notice in this chart, they're in order from lowest literacy rate, and it's going up higher and higher and higher. So this statement says the higher the literacy rate, the lower the birth rate. So they're saying if as literacy rate goes up, what happens with those same countries to birth rate? Does it go down like it says here? Yes, it does. So what this chart is saying would be that the more people are educated, know how to read, the less likely they are to have a whole bunch of, or have, more children, basically, because they'll be busier working and things like that in their professional life. The last one, Qatar does not value education. If 96% of their people are literate, then that statement would not be true. The last one here, a little hard to read, but you go through this, there are more than one statement that can be proven true here. You just need to look at it carefully. The blue line is Germany, the red line is Egypt. Notice that Egypt is trending mostly upward except for that last year, and Egypt is trending downward every year for unemployment. So look at that carefully to determine which of those